Yeah, I think that we both will be kind of sharing the screens independently. Um, so I'll have um, a cover sort of screen, a welcoming screen. I guess we should get started. Um, it is 10:32. Very good.
Should I pull my slides into the share screen mode? It won't let me. That's why I'm asking.
Oh, just give me a minute.
Yeah.
I'm not quite ready for that. Let's see. Michelle, one of the things that I thought it would be good, since we have some really great folks in the room, is we're going to have to kind of figure out how we can engage them and get them involved in the conversation.
You want me to bring them all into the meeting?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. I'll do that right now.
Thank you.
Good morning, all.
Hi, David. Hi, Kathleen. I see you. You got my email.
Good. Thanks, Edith. I appreciate that.
I am, I'm just beyond the moon right now.
Well, thanks so much for thinking about me. I really appreciate that.
Very good. As we're getting folks in, hi, Brittany, good morning. Good morning, everybody. I'm just going to get started. People are getting transferred as panelists. Let's start with some housekeeping. Let us all mute our phones or our computers so we don't hear the background. So you're welcome to share your screen. If you want to, we can see you, and we welcome seeing your beautiful faces. I'm going to be looking behind me, hoping that my kids won't stumble into the conference here. So good morning. My name is Edith Ramirez. I am the Economic Development Director for the City of Morgan Hill. We have the Economic Development team here joining us. I see John Lang, Economic Development Manager, as well as Olivia Nunez, our Economic Development Fellow. From the city side, I see Michelle Bigelow, who is helping us with any technical issues that we may have. We have our partners, Visit Morgan Hill, the tourism organization. Krista Rupp is here. Brittany Sherman, Executive Director, CEO for the Chamber of Commerce, is here as well. I am delighted to see some council members here. We have Council Member John McKay. Hello, Ms. Councilmember McKay. I see Councilmember Larry Carr. Thank you, Councilmember Carr, for joining us. And we have a number of other great restaurants and representatives of some of the shopping centers. If I didn't call you, and I can see you on the screen, if you want to say hello and just tell the rest of the folks here on the call what restaurant or organization you're representing, that would be great. We're going to start. Dixie. Hello, Dixie. Thank you for joining us. We can't hear you. Hi, Dixie. Dixie Devine is, I'll introduce her. Dixie Devine is the CEO of Prime Commercial. She represents 3 of the largest shopping centers here in Morgan Hill, in addition to some other downtown assets. So a lot of small businesses under her wheelhouse in Morgan Hill. Thank you, Dixie, for joining us. Hello, Planning Commissioner Laura Gonzalez Escoto. Thank you for being here. Good morning, Rosie.
Morning.
Rosie is with Rosie at the Beach, one of our most favorite restaurants that has been here forever and has seen the growth in Morgan Hill. Rosie, how long have you been in business?
We've been in business here for 22 years.
Very good. Thank you, Rosie. Sal, thank you for joining us, Sal.
Good morning.
Sal
Good morning.
Felici, you want to introduce yourself and tell us your restaurants?
So I'm Salvatore Calisi, and I am the owner of Prova, California Table, and Odium in Morgan Hill. And I started Odium in 2011.
So I'd like to brag that Sal is our Michelin star chef in town. We're very blessed to have many great restaurants here in town. And Sal, thank you for joining us. I know everybody's busy. All right, let's go around the room quickly. I see a lot of folks. Just raise your hand, say hello.
Hello.
Hi, I'm Brianna. I'm the manager at Moe's Willard Hickson Taco.
Thank you for joining us. Go, Nick. Sorry, Nick, we didn't hear you.
Sorry, this is Nick Gage from Craft Roots.
And Craft Roots, you've been closed, but you're gonna open for curbside when?
Soon, couple weeks.
Okay. Hamdi?
Good morning, everybody. My name is Hamdi Al-Tayeb. I'm from My Pizza and Morgan Hill. Nice to meet you all. Thank you for being here.
And I see David Dindak, but it's Carrie. Carrie, you want to say hi?
Hi, I'm Carrie. I have a new look today. I own Bubbles and Brew with my husband, Dave.
Thank you. And David and Carrie are also representing the Downtown Restaurant Association, working not only with the downtown businesses, but the restaurants in downtown. Mr. Jean Guillermo, I see you. Hello, good morning. Jean is with Guillermo Winery, and he is also on the board for Visit Morgan Hill.
Good morning, everyone. I'm just listening in, very supportive of the restaurants and the local food and wine scene. So just want to do what I can to support everybody.
Wonderful. I see John Carr. We can't hear you, sorry. Oh, so sorry. We didn't get your mic, but unmute your mic and we'll go with somebody else.
Have you got me now?
Yeah.
My name's John Carr. I'm the California Alcoholic Beverage Control. We got an invitation here in the last hour, so thought I'd dial in, say hello. Unfortunately, I have another live thing at 11 a.m., so I can only stay for a little while, but that's it.
I am so excited that you joined us. We have a very specific question that we want to ask you regarding ABC's thinking about allowing alcohol to go. So we'll come back to you and we'll let you off the hook right away. All right, super quickly. I know that I'm taking a long time hearing the introductions. Hi, Molly. Good morning.
Hi, good morning from Sinaloa Cafe.
Very good. Mark and Ray. Let's go with Ray first. Ray, you want to say hello?
Yep. Good morning. This is Ray. I'm good. Ray from Siam Thai Restaurant. Can you hear me?
House of Siam, is that what you said?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Thanks, Ray. And Mark and Miriam. All right, we can come back with the rest of the introductions. Go ahead.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Mark Gaetano, 88 Keys Cafe.
Thank you, Mark, for joining us. We have a whole bunch of other folks on the line, and we will continue introducing ourselves, but let us get started. Can you mute your mic so we can just get started on the presentation? I'm going to share this screen. This is the Restaurant Resiliency Roundtable. And we actually have a couple of additional guest speakers, so we're going to go fast, and we're hoping to cover a lot of ground today. Our main guest speaker today is Matt Sutton with the California Restaurant Association. He's going to run us real quickly through some of the policies and regulations that they're advocating for at the California level to support our restaurants. At the end of the presentation, for all of you that attended, we will provide you with his contact information. But we also have a couple of folks on the line that we want to make sure that we get their time. One is Kathleen. I came across this write-up that I thought was fabulous on a restaurant thinking of rethinking restaurants. And since she's on the phone, I would love to have her share with us her thinking on this paper she wrote. And before John with ABC leaves, we want to make sure that we hear from him as well. Given the time, Matt, do you mind if we quickly go to John?
No, that'd be fantastic. John, thanks so much.
No problem.
Hey, John, thanks for joining us. So putting you on the spot, doing this on the fly a bit, but would love to kind of hear from you a few words as to how ABC is handling this shelter in place. What are the things that you're thinking about? What are the lessons learned going forward? What are the things that you're thinking about? For Morgan Hill specifically, I will share with you two thoughts. One, we're super excited about the alcohol to go. I mean, I don't know about everybody else, but I am. And surprisingly, it hasn't been that big of a deal, right? Like, we haven't had issues. Our police chief is not here, but we haven't heard of any problems with the alcohol to go. That was a big sort of exciting thing for us is to get introduced to that. So would love to understand what is ABC's thinking about that. And then the second thing is realizing that the new normal might require distancing for restaurants, and communities all throughout are looking about repurposing their streets so that the restaurants can push out onto the actual streets and what have you. How quickly do you think that ABC is going to be able to turn around request and ability to expand their licenses for restaurants? And if you have any other questions, folks, feel free to put your questions on the chat and we'll try to get to those. John, to you.
Okay, let's start first with mixed drinks to go. That was the first regulatory relief that we pushed through on the 19th of March. And that allowed restaurants, places that serve food and prepare food on site, to allow for things like margaritas or, various mixed drinks that can be served with the meal and sent home with the patrons. But just a couple things is that we just wanted to make sure that, the licensees were really helpful on educating the patrons and making sure that they transported those mixed drinks to go in sealed containers, preferably in the trunk of a car, or at least in the rear of the vehicle where it's away from passengers, with a secure lid with no straw holes, and it needed to be given to someone of legal age, obviously. We've had good compliance. I mean, the industry brought some of these ideas to us, and the creativity and the creative thought of how do we get through this pandemic where we can keep people's operations going. And, the goal here really is to try to get people back to work. We just have to do it safely. So on mixed drinks to go, the only thing that we might want to get help with, in speaking to folks in Morgan Hill and many of the great businesses that are, doing a great job of trying to survive this just horrible economic stress that we're all under, is to make sure that they communicate with the delivery services. Some of the delivery services haven't been as careful as we want to see them in delivering the alcohol, and some of them are not checking identification. So good communication between the licensees and delivery services would be great, but I just want to reiterate that the mixed drinks to go, it has been popular, and we have had great compliance, and the licensees are doing a good job on that, and we thank you for that. Secondly, on expanding premises. This is a new thing, and we just pushed out the 4th notice of regulatory relief. It's now posted on our website with guidance for those businesses. Unfortunately, it only applies to those locations where stay-at-home orders have been lifted, and state and local health have said, okay, you can have inside dining now. And when you have inside dining, then now we can look at spacing people out and using places like parking lots and patios and shared areas between businesses, provided it's within the control of the licensee, of the people who are operating the restaurant or the location where they're serving alcohol, to make sure they got a good visual on where the patrons are sitting, and there's someone there to make sure that alcohol doesn't get in the hands of minors and that people don't imbibe too much and put themselves and everyone else in danger. I hope I've covered that. I don't want to be too long because I know a lot of people have a lot of things they want to get to, but in a nutshell, those are my attempts at trying to answer your questions.
So I want to press it a little bit more. So from a technical perspective, as we are now looking at pushing out into the parking lots and streets, so process-wise, what do we do? What does the restaurant do to just be able to expand the license?
Yes, we just opened up a whole new protocol right in our licensing division on the fly, and they should have the forms up on the website tomorrow. That's our goal, is to get those up there where people can start filling out those forms and say, here's the diagram of where I want to be able to operate our business and where we want to be able to serve alcohol safely. Once it's deemed okay that we can open things up a little more, which we all hope is sooner rather than later. And so there's going to be a little form called a catering authorization that would allow for the expansion of premises, and the ABC will be looking at those, and the licensing staff has been brought up to speed, and we're rapidly trying to get that because we know people need to get up and going, and we need to get people back to work, and we're sensitive to that, and we will move as fast as we can.
All right. Thank you. So we're going to move as fast as we can. There's going to be a quick and easy form. Does the form require the landlord to sign? I assume that the form requires some sort of a sketch that says this is where we're pushing out to. This is a new boundary for our sales. Are you going to require the property owner or landlord or city to approve any revisions to their boundaries?
Can I get back to you on that? I think you're right. I just need to double check. I just haven't been able to get into all those particulars because I've just been juggling a lot of tennis balls here. And I'm sorry. I think you're right on point there. But I'm hoping the form is short. I haven't actually seen it yet. But nonetheless, yeah. I do know that you have to have sign off from some different folks.
Right. We, the city ourselves, are trying to put our arms around this issue. So, for example, Dixie Divine, that has a number of restaurants, not restaurants, a number of shopping centers. We were having this conversation as to, well, what do they need to do with their CC&Rs? What do we, city, need to do? And maybe the city can just provide some sort of a blanket policy to the property owners or to the shopping center saying, we're not going to regulate parking and signage right now during SIP because everything is fluid, and the best thing we can do is kind of get out of the way. But that still leaves the restaurant and the property owner to go figure it out. So what I'm hearing from you, John, is that things are evolving fast. You're trying to figure it out. You're working as fast as you can. But you are developing a process to be able to turn around those applications quickly, realizing that the next phase will require just expanding outside. And quick question, because again, something that we are passionate about is, again, the issue of allowing alcohol sales to remain forever. Like making that the true new normal. What are the chances of that? How can we make that happen?
I think that's going to be something for the California legislature. The ABC won't be able to automatically change the law on its own because we're regulatory. So that will have to go to the House.
Okay, so we will talk to Matt about that, our California Restaurant Association rep, government affairs person. Very good. I want to make sure, again, being cognizant of time, for the rest of the group, any burning questions for ABC? For the rest of the group, if you did not get a chance to introduce yourself, please do so on the chat so we know who's on the call, and we at least can say hello on the chat. If there's any additional questions, we will follow up with John, and our office is as well as trying to work as quickly as we can to accommodate this changing environment. All right. Link for the expansion of applications. So we will follow up with all of you that signed up with links to and sort of what to do next. Thank you, John.
No problem. There's 7 specific things. I was just looking at the temporary catering authorization that gives guidance, and we have it in writing, sitting right on the homepage. So it's there.
Very good. Thank you. We will follow up with an email to everybody here. With that, let us move to Matt, since we're going to put the pressure on him. Thank you, John. Matt, where are you? I have to look you on my screen now that everybody is a panelist. Oh, there you are. Matt, thank you for joining us. So I'm going to start with the question of how do we get the alcohol to go approved? Is that part of your work program? And why don't you go ahead and start sharing your screen so you can take us through your presentation? And then after that, we will go to Kathleen so she can talk to us about the new restaurant strategy.
All right. Well, good morning. Thank you for having me. I'm going to take an attempt here at doing my tech stuff. So give me a break here. Great. So let me know if there's any problems seeing anything. And I really appreciate the invitation to be here. And I think it's fantastic that you got John here from ABC at all, but certainly on such short notice, because ABC, I have to say, that's the Department of Alcohol Beverage Control at the state level, and of course, well represented regionally. They have been nothing short of absolutely amazing in this economic and public health crisis. And I will touch on some of the great partnerships that we've all had with ABC with a lot of your feedback. But gosh, really great that he was here and able to give you those 2 updates. I'm going to touch on those updates a little bit, just because obviously they're near and dear to our heart as well. And, you know, with Director Applesmith at ABC and John Carr's leadership locally, but really been able to offer some new and innovative things for restaurants. And Edith, as you suggest, you know, maybe there's a discussion for these to be permanent. We think there's certainly a discussion, but we'll have to see how some of these things roll out over time. Obviously, the alcohol to go thing is a little bit new in terms of the scale that it's happening right now. And so happy to walk through some of those issues. I would really love to hear from the rest of everybody in this group more than me talk. So I will try to move through my slides quickly. But there's a lot going on. I'm Matt Sutton. I'm with the California Restaurant Association. I'm lucky enough to oversee our government affairs program, which means basically we have a team of lobbyists that are spread out throughout the state, including in the Bay Area and all the other metropolitan areas of the state. And then we have our team in Sacramento that deals with the state capitol primarily. And I oversee that team. And we're incredibly active in a lot of these areas. But the last few months, as you can imagine, there's been a lot of things taking us away from the day-to-day activity with our city halls and boards of supervisors. And we're doing that, like the rest of you, with physical distancing and technology. So lots of discussion lately about restaurants reimagined and people looking forward to what that means. I don't mean looking forward as in, oh, goody, here it comes, but we've been forced to do this. We've been forced to reimagine the way things look. As you all know, it was only March 15th when the governor came out and appropriately advised everyone that social distancing was going to have to be the new norm, at least temporary, and we did have capacity in dining rooms. And then it was in absolutely no time, the very next day, we shifted away from that as the pandemic really got root and everyone became incredibly aware of just how threatening it could be. And of course, that's when restaurants were shut down by the government for good reason, but still shut down. I know that makes it difficult, and limited service models only. And then by the 19th, all residents were told you need to stay at home except for essential travel. So the world in California and world in general, but I mean, just in these couple days, you can see here how quickly everything changed. And I've worked for the restaurant community for 11 years, and I've worked for other employer groups, and I've worked for elected officials, and I have never seen, and I always knew this to be true, restaurant operators, owners, staff, team members, managers, everybody are so passionate and so hardworking, but they are so nimble. They are able to absolutely pivot and do things that are just unimaginable. So this idea of restaurants reimagined is a necessary idea, because we've always known coming out of the pandemic, whenever we do ease, the stay in place or safer at home orders in Santa Clara County and elsewhere, we always knew things would look differently. The governor has appropriately said restaurant dining rooms will reopen on a dimmer, not a switch. And so it'll be a slow transition. And I know we're all eager for that transition. And I think it will be coming sooner than we anticipated a week ago, based on some announcements that were made yesterday that I'll touch on. But as you all know, restaurants are the cornerstone of every community. They are the fabric of what's going on in communities, and a tremendous employer statewide with 1.4 million restaurant workers throughout the state. We generate the most sales tax revenue of any industry. We're always up there neck and neck with new car sales. As we headed into the pandemic, and where we were for quite a while before that, the restaurant community was by far the largest generator of sales tax. That's both at the state and local level. And the local level is incredibly important because that's what funds so many great local programs. And local governments, more than ever, are going to be relying on sales tax dollars as we go forward, as both state and local budgets continue to be beyond stressed. So in the first 3 weeks of the pandemic, we had some interesting data that is really unpleasant, but it gives you an idea of just the first 3 weeks. So the data is even worse now, and we'll have some new data here in about 2 weeks. But it's estimated of that 1.5 million hospitality and restaurant workers in California. Right now, 1 million of them are furloughed or laid off. That's 70% of the overall food service and restaurant employee base. And then just in that first 3 weeks, almost half of all restaurants were completely closed. We know since then that has increased. And I don't mean closed permanently. I mean people that basically realized that takeout and the limited service model was limiting and not penciling out for them to continue, or they didn't have a concept where it necessarily worked well. And they decided just to close and hibernate, really. But that is an enormous percentage, right? Almost half. And that was just in the first 3 weeks. So the new data that we expect in a few weeks probably show a much, much, much higher rate of people that are attempting to hibernate through this. So in the middle of March, the legislature was also forced to stay at home and return to their districts and not be in Sacramento. The reason I mention this is because it's so unheard of. It was the first time in 158 years, I think, that they were forced into a non-scheduled work stoppage. And normally when we have crises and I won't say normally when we have pandemics, but normally when we have crises, it's earthquakes, it's wildfires, it's floods, it's things of that nature. And we always have a governing body in Sacramento to respond and to deal with it. In this case, our governing body, the legislature, was pretty much forced into their districts to be with their constituents, but due to the stay-at-home orders, they couldn't operate, and the state capitol was actually closed, which has made things incredibly interesting for those of us that do advocacy every day with elected officials. It's a whole new beast right now. But for the first few weeks, that left the governor. And the governor governing the state of California by executive orders, which are basically authority he has given to respond to crises. We initially put out a letter and lobbied the governor's office for a list of about 12 different items. And the theme of the items really isn't like, let's move the restaurant policy agenda down the field. it was, holy smokes, we need some things immediately to help us deal with this crisis. Unfortunately, with the government closure of restaurants, the layoffs that then came were not by choice and were not planned. And so the state has a law that you have to give adequate notice, lengthy notice, for any what they consider mass layoffs. And so if you don't do that, it's not just clerical work where you notice. And I know in Morgan Hill, unfortunately, there's been a number of layoffs too that we know about because of the WARN Act. But one of the things we needed done immediately was to suspend portions of the WARN Act so that entities and businesses that were already down didn't get kicked again for not providing adequate notice to the state and local government about layoffs, and also the financial penalties that came with that. So that was the first thing the governor did that we asked for, which was helpful. And then, as you've mentioned already, ABC was incredibly flexible. We had asked and worked with the leadership at ABC in Sacramento on some new and innovative ways to provide any level of revenue, any revenue stream into a restaurant in hopes of keeping some staff on board as we really pivoted to a only takeout and pickup model. Of course, Franchise Tax Board did tax payment extensions. We asked for not a get out of jail free card, but we asked for extensions on payments of taxes that were due April 15th. Sales tax deferrals for small businesses was another thing that we had asked if that could be, can we buy time and remit those sales taxes at a later date? And that too was achieved for small businesses. And actually going back on the tax issue, there still are a number of tax policies that aren't incredibly advertised, but they are in the California Department of Tax and Fee Administration. And for instance, a delay on payroll taxes, a delay on a number of these taxes, you are welcome and encouraged to submit the requests. And from our conversations with people at the Franchise Tax Board and at the California Department of Tax and Fee Authority, they are granting a lot of these extensions. So we've had a lot of questions, whether that applies to payroll taxes and things. There's a portal on the website, again, not very well advertised, but it is there and something to be aware of. And then, of course, the federal government enacted paid sick leave on an emergency basis for any of those employees impacted directly by COVID-19 or their family. The federal law applied to employers with 500 employees or fewer. And then the state came back through executive order, as did the city of San Jose and the city of San Francisco and a few other cities, that said for everyone with 500 employees or up, you also have to grant the 80 hours of paid sick leave. And then, unfortunately, a workers' compensation executive order came out recently that for 60 days will basically come to the conclusion, presumptively, that any employee that has COVID-19 got it at work. It's a 60-day emergency executive order. We certainly objected to the idea that it would be presumed that an employee would get COVID-19 at work. We just don't think that's a good precedent to set, and we know that there's lots of other ways, especially as counties are starting to loosen up their stay-at-home orders, that transmission is going to spread around, and this is unfortunate. The governor was acting here in the face of 2 or 3 different pieces of legislation that would have gone far further. So this is meant as a temporary stopgap, and we are working with the insurance commissioner and other workers' comp insurance officials at the state level to see if we can at least get the impact of this mitigated. Looking forward, there's a number of policy issues we're going to be looking at. The legislature just came back about 2 weeks ago. They are doing a lot of remote committee hearings. So in short, normally they would hear 1,500 to 2,000 different pieces of legislation each calendar year. This year, they're trying to pare it down to be only COVID-19 related. We'll see how that works. Some of the things that we know and need right now are some sort of safe harbor or legal protection, because as the stay-at-home orders are lifted and as counties start to allow the gradual reopening of businesses, restaurants in particular, we are going to be asked to do things, and we're going to be mandated to do things by local health departments. And in doing so, we want to make sure that we don't have any of the frivolous drive-by lawsuits that we often see on so many issues, where someone wasn't actually harmed and they're meant just to squeeze a restaurant operator into settling. we're going to need some of those, particularly when I get into what exactly restaurants are going to be asked to do in terms of the governor's guidance and what we expect Santa Clara's guidance to look like. Unemployment insurance, another big issue. We're working on legislation right now. And the idea here is, of course, you had no control over the layoffs. Normally, your unemployment insurance is related to your business experience as in terms of employment. And your experience rating goes through the roof when you have mass layoffs. And so what we're trying to do is basically enact some state law that would freeze you where you were before COVID-19 for the length of the pandemic. And that seems to be getting good bipartisan support. Again, these aren't really earth-shattering in terms of new policies for restaurants. They're really focused right now on this whole idea of hibernating through a crisis. The next issue deals with commercial leases. Lots of communities have moved to establish protections for renters, and a number of communities have moved forward on commercial lease protections. There's a couple state pieces of legislation that are looking at least providing a moratorium on evictions for commercial leases. And there's other bills that go even further and basically would enable a restaurant leaseholder to escape their lease if they come to some major disagreement over the future of their contract with a commercial property holder. That one is getting some attention now. But my point to you is there's a whole bunch of discussions at the state level going on about what can we do in terms of helping restaurants and other small businesses that are in this bind where they cannot really be open with full service at this point, but they still have all the huge fixed costs of rents, leases, insurance, and other things. And then there's a number of things that are just always going on behind the scenes in the regulatory environment in Sacramento. And we've just simply said, hey, well, everyone's trying to figure out this crisis. And as you all and we all are trying to get those 1.4 million restaurant workers back to work, can you just press pause on a number of the things that are in the works? And some of those direct the restaurant community directly. There's an ongoing effort to regulate the temperatures in restaurant kitchens at OSHA. And that's something we've been working with them on for 18 months. And we've simply said, hey, that's an example of something we'd like you to just press pause on right now. And then there'll be more to come as we go. Business interruption insurance is another issue that the state is going to dig into here with some new legislation that'll be introduced this week. And so all of these issues and many more are sort of on the table in Sacramento. The legislature's only been back in business here for a week or two. But once they get past the state budget, they'll start talking about economic recovery and workforce issues. So the road to reopening, the restaurant community has always been in the hands of the public health departments and certainly will be after COVID-19. We at CRA work with the California Conference of Directors of Environmental Health, the California Conference of Local Health Officers. And what these two groups are is the first group is, as it sounds, it's a trade association for the directors of environmental health. And the other one is a similarly situated trade association for the direct health officers. And my point in bringing this up is the governor announced last week the statewide protocols for reopening restaurants. California Restaurant Association and these two groups and the California Department of Public Health is who put together much of that guidance that the governor and the California Department of Public Health released. Our whole idea in doing this was how do you get 58 health departments and the 3 or 4 cities that have their own health departments like Berkeley, Pasadena, Vernon, and Long Beach? How do you get them all on the same page relatively when it comes to reopening? And so the attempt was to get these groups together to agree on some broad statewide parameters for reopening and then some ideas and solutions that local health departments could consider implementing locally, because health departments are best situated to determine risk assessment in that local community rather than having one big statewide reopening plan. So these 3 groups make up the California Retail Food Safety Coalition. And those groups put together the guidance and submitted it to the governor prior to the governor announcing his roadmap. And his roadmap we're appreciative of for a couple of reasons. One, It sets that broad statewide parameter. It avoids what we really wanted to avoid, which other states have done and has not worked out very well, and that is an arbitrary capacity number. We wanted more than anything to avoid a 25% capacity limit statewide, and we did. Local communities, if they want, can go and implement a percentage cap. But right now, based on the effort that we just came out of with those health departments, it's a strong belief for many that just firm, strict social distancing or physical distancing in the restaurant space is better than an arbitrary number. We also know that many of you operate on leases and rents that are connected to your financial health and capacity. And so that was another reason that we couldn't take a flat, arbitrary capacity number that really is related to the fire marshal and the occupancy sign in most businesses. So the reopening guidelines are out. I mentioned the collaboration to get there, and we think that really makes it so that everything that was in the governor's announcements is in place somewhere in California. Each of the 58 counties and 3 or 4 cities that have their own health departments have a wide variety of things in place right now for restaurants. So every idea in that document that the governor has released is in place somewhere, and we've got some insight how it's working in those jurisdictions. The real sticking point that has been there is not so much the 12-page document that the Department of Public Health put out, and it's got some wording in there that may be concerning, so I'm happy to go into any of that and give you my perspective on it. But it was the public health benchmarks that were announced the previous week that basically had 7 or 8 measures that the local health department had to attest to. And the number one thing that county after county kept bringing up as a concern was the requirement to have no deaths or no more than 1 death in a 14-day period related to COVID-19. Most counties said they could not meet that anytime soon. And there were a number of other sticking points in the criteria. Obviously, we are all completely dedicated to protecting public health, but we do want to make sure that there's some viable pathways for counties to slowly start to reopen. And so the public health benchmarks were modified and announced yesterday. So far, there's about 23 counties that have been approved to reopen. Most of them are rural Northern California counties, with the exception of, San Benito. But most of them, had really low and manageable rates of COVID-19 to begin with. So this new criteria is meant to focus less on death rates and more on positive infection rates. And it's meant to provide a more streamlined pathway to reopening while protecting public health. And so it's this pathway that was announced just yesterday. And I know countless public health departments around the states, city councils, boards of supervisors, I know we've got some council members here with us as well today, are just now looking at the new data and what it means for Santa Clara County and other counties. But the idea certainly is to remove that one barrier that was so insurmountable for so many counties, which was 0 to no deaths, 1 to 0 deaths in a 14-day period. So the governor's done a great job announcing these regional pathways. We have the public health benchmarks, as I mentioned, new and updated ones issued yesterday. They still continue to focus on, does a local region have the ability to absorb a surge in COVID-19 in terms of hospital capacity? The contact tracing, all of those things that were there before in the benchmarks are still there. But these are a little bit more manageable to achieve. And again, it will be dictated by the local health department. So as you know, limited retail, manufacturing, and logistics were first let out of the gate for slow reopening. Restaurant dining rooms were announced next. The county numbers keep changing, so pardon my slides. But we have about 23 that are open now, and that number is going to grow because what we're going to see now is a number of counties will be putting in their attestation documents to the state today, tomorrow, and the rest of this week based on the new criteria. And so in the governor's plan, there's a couple key focuses. There's 12 pages or so of recommendations, and a lot of the questions we're getting are, which ones are recommendations which ones are mandatory. And so I'm going to go through the 4 or 5 topics that are mandatory. Look at it this way. These categories of things are mandatory from the state level. And there are some other mandatory things in there that I'll touch on. But what's intended is that your county health department will come up with the specifics under each of these 5. And they will do that based on some of the recommendations that are in the governor's document. And then, of course, you know, no one's better than Santa Clara County to do the local risk assessment than the health department there. So when you see workplace specific plan and you look at the state's guidance document, you may think that that's a daunting piece of document you need to put together. What it is it's an important document, but what's been provided is a template. And the template is meant for you to post and simply fill out, these are the procedures I'm following. And if I'm not following one, it gives you the opportunity to explain how you're addressing the spirit of that issue that's brought up. And so it is intended to be a super transparent and relatively easy and customized form for you to post that would cover what your plan is. And there's all sorts of specific elements that you can list there, and it gives you some flexibility. And then, you know, topics for employee training, a lot of questions we get is, oh, geez, training is time consuming and expensive. And restaurant employees already have the best training when it comes to food service. We agree with all of that. No one is better than, you know, these sanitizing measures than restaurants. Restaurants are some of the cleanest places to eat, more so than most people's home kitchens. So, you know, this is something the restaurant community has nailed for sure. But what do they mean by employee training? They mean things like making your employees aware of the list from CDC of the common COVID-19 symptoms. They mean making employees aware of, you know, proper physical distancing and the importance of doing that. So there are really just a number of things that you would make employees aware of as it relates to COVID-19 training. And that could be posting, you know, documents and posters throughout the restaurant, which again, the state has provided a number of templates and posters that are meant to educate your employees, certainly, your team members, and the public. And then, you know, number 3 says screening, and lots of people ask screening, oh, geez, do I have to screen my guests? Well, you know, here's the governor's document does a very good job, again, in consultation with local public health directors, to allow different ways that employees could be screened. And just to cut to the chase, there's nothing in that document that requires you to take temperatures of your customers or your guests. What it does do is it says, you know, a measure that satisfies guest screening would be to post a sign like Santa Clara County currently offers that you'd put in a window and says, hey, if you have any of these symptoms, please come back and visit us another time. One thing we wanted to be really careful about, and that was based on the feedback of thousands of restaurants, was, you know, please don't put us in the policing role of policing our guests. And to the extent that we can do that, we will. And we have succeeded so far. And so the idea of taking temperatures of guests and things is not on the table. A local public health department, of course, can go more stringent than the state, but there's only a few counties where that is required now, and it's required for the employees, not for the customers. And so the next one gets at cleaning and disinfecting protocols. That's stuff that you all are already amazing at. And some of the things that are going to be asked in there are, for instance, you know, if you can do single-use menus, fantastic. If you can't, have a wipeable menu that could be cleansed between each guest. No common things on the table like ketchup, mustard, salt, pepper, those kinds of things. Those should be done on a on-request basis. There'll be some heightened expectations for cleaning and sanitizing and monitoring self-service stations like soda fountains, you know, iced tea stations, drink stations, things of that nature. You're going to be asked to clean those on a regular and periodic basis. There's not a time defined in the state guidance so that you can work with your local county health departments and us too on defining what that what that time period would be. And that would apply to a lot of self-service items. Of course, salad bars, and things like that that are truly self-serve are going to be done away with for the time being. You won't see any of those anytime soon. You can use them if you have an employee or a team member doing the serving, but open sort of help yourself bars, salsa bars, things of that nature are definitely what's being asked to be eliminated. And then the physical distancing guidelines, those are really envisioned to be in the dining room and on patios and things of that nature, having tables 6 feet apart, limiting table size to some degree, and then really managing your outdoor areas of your restaurants when people are congregating to wait. That is what needs to be avoided. And so, you know, it's going to take some creativity and distancing people as they wait. Lobby areas of restaurants are okay, but again, some management of physical distancing, not between people, but between parties. And then the other area that keeps coming up is, you know, the state has asked that your bar areas be closed. And we've talked to the state about full service restaurants and how bar areas are an extension of the dining room. And that would be an area that would be helpful to have some social distancing going on. The comment there is that they would, they want the bars closed. They don't want people served at the bar. And if there is some level of social distancing, physical distancing happening that you can accommodate better in a bar area, and it's just adjacent to the dining room, that may be an area that can be accommodated. But that one still needs to be worked out a bit at the local health department level. We've been successful in some of the open counties in saying that, look, that extra bar area, of course, we won't open as a bar and serve drinks to people in the bar, but if it can be used as sort of a waiting room to accommodate the social distancing before people take a seat, that'd be really helpful. So I've mentioned the employment numbers of restaurants. You know, we're the most diverse workforce in the entire state. You know, it's not known by a lot of people, but did you know that in California, people of color own 60% of California restaurants? There's 64% of the restaurant wait staff. There's 70% of restaurant management, and they're 80% of California's chefs. And so we've always prided ourselves on a very diverse workforce, and very proud of that. And we continue to try to put a face on just how many restaurant workers are out of work right now, and the need to reopen slowly. And I know that your county in particular and your local chamber of commerce have asked for some safe, accelerated reopening. Those are my words, not their words. But you know, we appreciate that, and we think that that's important, and we think that the announcements yesterday are going to pave the way to a sooner open. So just some of the data so you can see how important, you all know because you do it every day, but local governments are really, really reliant on sales tax dollars. And the restaurant community is part of revitalizing most local communities, and just a huge sense of community. And so the numbers are impressive on a good day, but the numbers are still even more impressive now that we have budget crises happening at both the state and local level. And so these sales tax dollars go into a lot of local resources, whether it's schools or first responders, law enforcement, and then obviously incredibly important to your region in particular is transportation and infrastructure projects. And restaurant sales tax dollars help to subsidize those as well. So in a good economy, we normally are telling people, you know, what the facts say, and the facts show that 95 cents of every dollar is going back into the people, the places, the experience for restaurants. And in a good day, a restaurant operator has that small sliver of 5% on average of what's left. And so it gives you a sense of right now, without a revenue source, without a dining room open, and with such limited service models in play, that small piece doesn't exist for most. And you've probably seen growing press about people kind of bailing out of the takeout model because it's just not penciling out. And so we are looking forward to new and different ways for restaurants to operate. And one of the things, I'm done with the slides here, but one of the things that's been brought up is this idea of outdoor spaces. and taking on new meaning. As you know, countless Bay Area cities are moving forward to allow different and innovative dining spaces, whether it be parklets or portions of a parking lot, where many are finding they're not going to be using valet areas any longer in the near future. And so opening up those spaces, the city of San Jose, of course, did that recently. And we look forward to more cities doing it. In anticipation of this, we've been working with ABC on the idea of, would you be able to provide some sort of streamlined way to serve alcohol in a controlled environment in some of these new areas? Because cities, as you know, are talking about, temporarily shutting down streets or plazas in different areas. And to accommodate the physical distancing that we're all going to be doing when we come out of this, those open spaces are going to be critical. And ABC has, we're so grateful. Another thing that ABC has been so awesome in delivering on is this added flexibility that John Carr mentioned earlier, which is this temporary catering sort of permit that would allow you to, without a bunch of regulatory hassle, seek approval to serve alcohol in these areas. So there's a lot of new and innovative things going on to help with regard to the alcohol that Edith brought up in terms of, can we make it permanent, the to-go and the for delivery sales? That is an issue that has to be dealt with the legislature. It is something we're starting to work with a number of the legislators on. First, we have these crisis items. That's a long-term item, policy change for down the road. And just in general, when we're dealing with alcohol policy and ABC in the legislature, we want to know what the data says. And so while we think it's a great idea and it's providing a very small level of relief right now, is it something that can be part of the permanent landscape? We think it is. We think if this goes well, then there's absolutely a public policy case to be made for it. John highlighted the key factor, though, that I do want to point out. It's really, really, really important that the delivery side of the alcohol be buttoned up tight. And so when alcohol leaves your facilities, you all do what you do best, which is run your businesses according to the law. And that's fantastic. Just like when the food leaves, when the alcohol leaves, we don't have control of it. It's out of our chain of custody. And we're operating on faith that it's going to be delivered appropriately, safely, in the people of legal age. And so that, frankly, John was very kind in what he said. That's an area that's of huge concern, and an area that ABC has sternly written to the delivery companies that they need to do a little bit better job of checking identifications on the receiving end. So I point that out because, yes, we like the policy, we think it's good, but we want to make sure that all these little areas that might not be working so good right now get fixed and approved. Again, this isn't on your side of things, this is on the delivery side of things. So we hope and think that can easily be fixed. But I think that kind of sale, the added outdoor spacing, is sort of a new and different thing that will be coming into play. And then, a number of restaurants have immediately pivoted when the crisis came into light grocery sales. And so a lot of health departments are not generally issuing permits to restaurants to do light grocery sales. But in the context of this crisis, a number of grocery stores have sold, grocery-like items, not full grocery stores, and with limitation. And that's another area that seems to have worked really well and been driven by grassroots support of local communities. So that would be another area that we might want to look into on an ongoing basis. And that issue seems to be going very well and done in a very safe and effective manner. I feel like I've talked too much, so I wanted to give you a little bit of a landscape. There's lots of things we're working on, both state and locally. So I'll be quiet and would love to answer any questions at the appropriate time.
Thank you, Matt. So really, really good information. So appreciate that you made the time to join us today. 4 comments that I want to make that came through the chat or through Facebook. And I think it's relevant to what you said today. Somebody on Facebook, I think, said, is there something we can do to kind of have tamper-resistant containers And I think that that issue addresses the alcohol to go. Somebody else, Alicia, one of our commissioners, thank you for joining us, also said, well, let's look at the delivery regulations for cannabis and see how some of those regulations could be applied to restaurants. Brittany mentioned that in the context of menus and what have you, some restaurants are using QR codes as a way to quickly access restaurant menus without touching stuff. And somebody else on Facebook also said, restaurants, can you please utilize more social media, Facebook, to post your menus and your specials? So with that, here's the plan for the rest of the program. And I am so excited of all the conversation. Encourage you to say hello on chat. Tell us who you are, what restaurant you represent. Just say hello. The next thing, since we were able to also snatch Kathleen at the very last minute, I'm gonna ask Kathleen for 5 minutes to give us a teaser on a document that I found really interesting on re-restauranting. And after her 5 minutes, then I want to open it up for the folks so that we can hear from you directly, but don't be shy to just start chiming in and asking questions or making comments on the chat. Kathleen, welcome. Can you join us with your screen and give us a teaser of what you guys put together?
Absolutely. And Edith, I just want to say thank you to you and all the commissioners for everything you're doing to support, restaurant owners and operators everywhere. And Matt, honestly, the work that the California Restaurant Association is doing is fantastic. My name is Kathleen Wood, and I own a very cleverly named consulting practice called Kathleen Wood Partners, based out of Chicago, Illinois, where we do not have sunny weather any day of the week for outdoor seating. But I'm thrilled to be here today because as a restaurant consultant for over the last 20 years, I've had the amazing opportunity to work with restaurateurs and small business owners across the United States. I still have many clients in the Bay Area in the Central Valley of California. So I've been, day by day, minute by minute, up to date with what you are experiencing each and every day as well. In addition to that, I also own my own family business in Northern Illinois called Susie Swirl, which is a frozen dessert company that I own with my sister. So as much as I'm consulting with people across the United States, I'm also living that COVID roller coaster each and every day, just like you are. Enjoying some of the ups that we get from it, not really enjoying those downs, and every day wishing that we were just off the ride completely. What I would like to share with you today, though, and I'm going to share my screen on this so you could see this, is when COVID-19 started, a good friend of mine and colleague, Jamie Griffin, he and I got together and we said, look, we've been in the industry for a while, for almost 20 years now. What can we co-develop that would help restaurateurs truly navigate not only the COVID-19 crisis, but potentially for crises as they move forward? And part of my career before I started my consulting practice, I had the opportunity to work with a company called Raising Cane's Chicken Fingers, who is definitely leading the way today in some of the best practices in navigating a COVID-19 marketplace. And when I was working there with Todd Graves and the entire team, I met Jamie Griffin, who today owns his own business called Consult to Grow. But one of the things that Jamie and I experienced together, I was the president and COO of Raising Cane's as we navigated before, during, and after Hurricane Katrina. And Jamie was there leading, the team member experience through the entire part of that journey. So we have experienced crisis up front. We've also seen how to do it well, and we've also seen how to navigate it to a successful next new normal. So Jamie and I got together and said, how do we develop this, a tool that will be practical, resourceful for operators no matter what stage or phase they are in terms of getting their restaurant back to the next new normal. So I'm going to just share with you really quick. This is a little bit of an eye chart. I totally get this, but here's what I want to point out to you is we really looked at it from first 4 phases. How do you restore your restaurant? How do you get the resolve to move your restaurant forward? Then how do you build that financial resilience to continue to move your restaurant? And then how do you ultimately get your restaurant to a complete return? Not as you remembered it before COVID-19, but as you will know it going forward. So we developed a 38-page guide that really is broken into these 4 categories. But in addition to that, we knew some operators out there were going to be like, hey, we don't want to go through all that. I just want to know how to lead my team through it. I just want to know how to plan to get through it. And I also want to know how to act as I get through it. So Jamie and I also developed this guide. So in each phase of the journey, we're giving you practical solutions and resources for you to lead yourself, your team, and your business. We're also giving you really practical tools so that you can plan for how you restore, resolve, and have the resilience for the return. And then last, how you act as you move forward. Now, one of the things that we have found since we've introduced this restaurant guide is that operators are using it across the board, and they're starting to marry it with other resources that are available to them. Much like the resources you heard Matt discuss from the California Restaurant Association. And I'm going to send Edith a link to another resource that US Foods put out just recently, which gives an amazing complement to the restaurant guide, as it really starts to get into the specifics of how to zone out your restaurant for safety and sanitation, how to manage your back of the house, how to manage your dining room, how to manage your parking lot. So I think that's going to be an excellent resource to go with this. The other thing I want to just mention about the restaurant guide is that we get what's going on there. You know, I'm an operator each and every day. So that's why when we developed this, we really wanted to first understand, you know, we got it, we understand it, and we want to give you some resources you can use to continue to monitor it. But we also want to give you something that is a practical tool as you move through each one of these phases. So I'm very excited about the reception that we've received for this. Jamie and I literally did this, you know, to help restaurateurs reset their mindset to the next new normal, to have them tap into their amazing support network with their local community leaders, their associations, and their customers and community, and also to give them a path so that they know that they're never alone in this process. If we've learned anything, the restaurant industry was always America's table for people to come together. Now, whether that table's inside a restaurant or outside a restaurant, we're going to continue to be that place for people to come together. But as restaurant operators and owners and operators, we also are in this together as well. So I encourage you to please download this free guide. There are no sales, no strings, there's no sales pitch at the end of it. It's just our gift to you, for you, operator to operator. And as an operator, I just want to say this. I know that there are many challenging days out there, but we are a resilient industry, and together we will rebuild in new and exciting and innovative ways, as Matt has said. But it's our time to rise up together, not just to help our restaurant, but to help our entire industry that does so much for so many on so many levels. And Edith, I want to thank you again for everything you're doing. And thank you for the opportunity for these few minutes today. And know that, you know, we are all here to help and support as we all, you know, rise up together as one. Stop my share.
Thank you, Kathleen. Well, that was a teaser. you didn't go through the document. Okay, so we're going to send you the link. I really found it very useful, but I appreciate how concise you were so we can just be in community right now. You know, as I reflect on all this good information, and I am so in awe of the restaurants and how much we depend on them, and how amazing they are at pivoting. I really, you know, reflect on City Hall and what is it that we can do? How can we pivot as quickly as you need us to pivot? And that's hard for us government folks. But nonetheless, here we are. I want to welcome Council Member Yvonne Martinez Beltran, who is here as well. And for everybody else, this is in our last 20 minutes that we have. I would like to ask you to share any thoughts, any concerns, anything that you want to tell us. We have several council members, 2 planning commissioners, the entire economic development team here. We are going, and before I forget, we're going to the city council tomorrow night to talk about what a recovery plan for Morgan Hill might look like. Now, we have collected a whole bunch of ideas, and then there is a handful of ideas that we think we want to recommend to move forward as a part of a conversation with the council. So we invite you to be engaged with that. If you cannot join us for the council meeting tomorrow night, you can send us your email with your ideas and we will forward it to the council. We expect that the meeting for our item is going to be heard about after 8:30 at night. And then if you're not able to make that, on Thursday at 5:30, we're hosting a town hall meeting that is completely dedicated to hear ideas about business recovery. So if you don't get to join us tomorrow, join us on Thursday. With that, you are welcome to raise your hand and see if you want to chime in, and we will call your name. And Brittany, I'm gonna ask you to unmute and gonna put you on the spot. Since you've chatted on the chat, say hello and what do we want to know about the chamber right now?
Hi everyone, Brittany Sherman, CEO, President, Morgan Hill Chamber of Commerce. We are extremely busy, just like everybody else is. We have 550 business members that we are trying to take care of. We've also expanded our services to send those resources out to the business community at large, whether you are a member or not, because we believe it's important for us all to recover in the same area at the same time. Right now, we are focusing on a Fit Business Challenge, which is every week in the month of May. We're sending out a challenge to the business community so you can really take advantage of this downtime that you have, whether it's claiming your Google listing or updating it, whether it's how to connect with your customers a little better. This next one we have coming up this week is about owning your website, getting a little bit of website mastery, and then also putting a sales platform that connects with that. And then we've got 2 more coming down the road as well. As I put on the chat box, our takeout and delivery page now has 3,300 followers. If you're not part of it already, please click to join. You can upload anything from a change of hours. You can upload menus, specials, deals, and all of that. So we encourage you to do that as well. We've taken on quite a bit of advocacy lately. So we put out a petition to Dr. Sarah Cody as well as the county supervisors, asking our businesses to sign on if they feel they are ready to safely reopen under the guidelines. We received 275 signatures on that. So very, very happy with the results of that. Have sent that over to those individuals as well. We also sent out a Friday Night Music Series survey. We host a 12-week concert, usually every summer, with multiple thousands of attendees. We sent a few weeks back saying, if you are able to, if we open it on July 10th, would you attend? Yes, I would attend, I might attend, or no. We received 684 responses from that survey. Of those, 58% said that they are ready to attend an event. 14% said they might attend, and basically they would attend if the county health released the guidelines and they felt comfortable attending, and only 27% said no. That was a few weeks ago. So that's kind of the way that the surveys and the numbers are rolling out. So we are encouraged with the 58% saying I would absolutely attend. That shows us that at least more than half of the community is ready to get back out there, socializing, getting back to a new normal. So that's probably my update. Thank you, Edith.
Thank you. All right, again, if you have any comments for Matt or for the city, feel free to raise your hand. If you have any questions, we will take them right now. I'll also mention that Krista Rupp with Visit Morgan Hill is here, and Visit Morgan Hill made a bit of an effort to support the hospitality industry with gloves and masks. Krista, you want to give us a quick update on, in case people are still looking for and having a hard time finding PPE?
Yeah, so Visit Morgan Hill's generous board of directors decided that we wanted to extend some assistance to local businesses in the hospitality and tourism industry, some relief, if you will, because obtaining, ordering PPE has been proving challenging as there's breaks in supply chain and service issues. So we were able to obtain some reusable fabric masks, single-use paper masks, as well as some clear restaurant gloves. And we do have a stock, and we're happy to get those out to any of you that might have an immediate need or a foreseeable need, just as a small token of our appreciation to what you're dealing with and what you bring to our community. So I'll put my email address in the chat for you so that if you do have an interest, we can connect offline.
Thank you. Thank you, Krista. So on the chat, we have a couple of links that I'll reference. One is Kathleen's report of that she mentioned today, and the other one is the link from ABC for ABC permits. Okay, any questions or comments? We have about 13 minutes left. I see John McKay raising his hand. Anybody else? John, go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much.
Councilmember McKay.
John works just fine, but yeah, thank you very much for the presentations. Thank you, everybody. A lot of work has been done, a lot of work still ahead of us. So my question is going to be preceded by a bit of an observation, and that is that we've noticed that there are several communities that are committing to close down parts of streets, entire streets, you know, some primary roadways to make sure that businesses have a restaurant and possibly other retail businesses have expanded area to use. So, you know, through this discussion, you know, part of it is we could shut down side streets and maybe leave those closed. But if we were to shut down something like Monterey Road in Morgan Hill for, say, the weekend, would businesses be willing to move all their tables and everything they need to function out into the sidewalks and roadways, knowing that come Sunday afternoon, we'd probably have to pull everything back in so that we could reopen the streets? And hopefully this will be done in conjunction with something like a complete streets program where we reduce the number of lanes to make it a little bit easier. But how effective would this effort be? It seems like a lot of work. Would the restaurants really want to take advantage of it? And you know, that the other part is right now, I guess the question for Matt is, does it look like we're going to go back and when we reopen in the next phase, will it be 50% capacity? Will that outdoor dining space really become critical to add that capacity that's necessary to actually become profitable or at least survive in this environment? I'll take my answer offline. I'll mute now.
All right, Matt, I don't know if you want to chime in on what Councilmember McKay.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, Councilmember. I think you're onto something there with the capacity. Well, the state isn't limiting capacity in a dining room by saying you must reduce occupancy to 50% or 25%. Local communities can. I don't necessarily anticipate that being an issue for you, but I think naturally by enforcing, you know, defined physical distancing in dining rooms, you're going to inherently reduce capacity, and that's why those outdoor areas become so important. So I appreciate what you're asking there, because I think those outdoor environments are going to make it, you know, essential for the restaurants that are interested and willing to do it, because many of their rents and things are connected to capacity and volume. So in an effort to accommodate good physical distancing, but also to make it worthwhile, I think these outdoor spaces are going to become, you know, more and more important. I also thought it was interesting, Brittany, what you mentioned with your survey. To me, they're both interesting, but the most interesting one gets at, you know, people's level of comfort going back out to, you know, an outdoor event like an outdoor concert. And I think, Councilmember, it's related in the sense that, you know, there's the customer confidence issue too. You know, are people going to flock to dining rooms? Probably not. But to the extent that their confidence gets increased by, you know, experiencing some of these new outdoor dining spaces, or a dining room that is, you know, lightly occupied in terms of what it used to be, those measures, as awesome as they're not, they may help boost consumer confidence to get us back to where we'd like to be. So I find both of those interesting. But the consumer confidence in terms of going out to an outdoor concert, that's pretty impressive. So I look at these as what they might mean for outdoor dining.
So could I have the restaurants and the businesses here maybe put on the chat or raise your hand to indicate that you would be willing to go through the effort to move furniture in and out if we were to open and close streets? Just to give me an idea.
Donna, I'll just make a quick comment or follow up with a question as well. With the outdoor seating, yes, there will be an extra effort to move tables and chairs out there because you got to accommodate different parties from 2 people to 6 people. One of the processes I had to go through with the city is obtaining a permit for those tables that would be sitting outside the sidewalk area. Part of that request also included that I got insurance, and insurance was costly. So my question would be that would the city streamline and that approval process, as well as would there be any additional insurance requirements that the city would need to have on that restaurant so they would be, I guess, insured or kind of a co-insurance for that permit?
Ooh, and the city.
I think I went, just so that you know, I think I worked with somebody like John Lang, I believe. So if he's still on the line, maybe he can weigh in.
Poor John, we're gonna put him on the spot and see if what we're gonna do. John,
and it wasn't cheap. Just so that you know, it wasn't cheap. It was a little bit of a long process, maybe 3 or 4 weeks, and the insurance that I had to get was a lot. It was close to maybe $1,500 to $2,000, just so that I had that ability to do that.
The insurance was expensive, and the processing was long.
3 or 4 weeks, I believe.
Yeah. Well, John, say hello.
Yeah, just
and
very
by the
quickly,
way,
I mean,
this is Ray at Siamtar Restaurant.
Yeah, hi Ray, nice to see you. I do think, that is pretty common with our encroachment permits, and would be something that as we explore these opportunities to have a conversation with our legal team on what is that risk. It really is about risk because you're in the public right of way, and it's about people falling, tripping, what have you. So it's a conversation I think we need to have internally, and certainly happy to do it and figure it out.
And thank you, John. And we are having that conversation. So to kind of marry the two issues, one, Councilmember McKay said, well, restaurants, if we kind of open up the streets temporarily and let you come out, but then we want to open them up to cars, would you be willing to go through all the back and forth? Is that even feasible? And some restaurants are saying like, yes, Nick said, yeah, I'll consider it. But what I think about is this, and I think that restaurants are going to say, we'll do whatever you let us do, but we got to do something because they're trying to literally survive. They're trying to make the next pay cycle. And I have a feeling that the restaurants are going to say, we'll do whatever you allow us to do. But I think that we need to balance that with the reality of something that is going to be feasible. Because at the end of the day, with the restaurants being already so stretched with very minimal resources, would they be able to even manage that? I think that we need to force ourselves to think outside of the box completely. Like we need to reinvent our thinking, and I'm going to challenge us to think about that. So say, for example, if the city did create some sort of a expansion and reutilization of streets and sidewalks, we require insurance because when somebody trips, people look at government like, "Ooh, deep pockets." we're going to put the claim on the government, not on the small business. But what if those sidewalks and extra space eventually, if that is the new normal and that is the only way we're going to survive down the road, what if those properties now are kind of passed on to the adjacent property owner? right? What if the city does not need to require insurance? And now I'm kind of like going crazy out here, so I realize that there's a lot to think about, but those are the conversations that we're having with our leadership team in-house. I see Councilmember Yvonne Martinez Beltran with your hand up. You want to say hello?
Hi, Edith. Thank you. I do. I want to thank everybody for being on here. It's so important. I want to encourage people to share the ideas. I think that's why we've gotten to the point that we are, if we're really honest, is a lot of the ideas that have come in from the community that have enabled us to pivot as quickly as we've been able to do. One of the comments I want to make is, and I'm with you, just breaking our head and thinking completely different. Maybe we don't know what the demand will be. So I think every restaurant is probably sitting there thinking, they don't know. From what Kathleen said, I mean, you may not know what it is that you need or you will be able to do because you don't even know what the demand is. So if we continue to think maybe communally, what if part of that answer, Edith, to push you even further, is what if it's some type of a communal seating that once you've hit, an overflow of, let's say, having your social distancing and you can't really accommodate any more social distancing, whether it's outside where you usually have people sit or inside, then they go to this kind of median area that we've set up, and it's manned by kind of all the restaurants, maybe the downtown association, or where it's set up and there's a schedule, certain group sets it up, certain group tears it down. This way it's not just one restaurant who has to be responsible for that, and it's almost like this overflow seating, which I think would be lucrative. You're sitting outside. But thinking, about that and seeing if that's some type of a possibility for us to do as well. The other thing that I wanted to ask was Kathleen. I heard her talk about she worked through Hurricane Katrina, and so I'm really interested to hear from you, or what were some of the really creative things that you saw come out of that? What were some of the tips, I guess, that you could give? Maybe they won't work in this situation, but what were some of the things that worked there so that we could start to try and generate more ideas here?
Thank you, Councilmember. I don't think Kathleen is with us anymore on the call because she had to run. We were able to kind of snatch her last minute this morning. But okay. I want to say that Molly made a comment on chat that I think is consistent with what you said. Molly says, and Molly, I think you said you're with Sinaloa. Yeah. And says one idea would simply be providing outdoor seating where customers could enjoy their takeout orders, so not necessarily having restaurants serve outside. So that reminds me of what Los Altos did with their green space, where they ended up shutting down one big street and they just made it an outdoor space. And it's something that we in the city kind of gave it a little bit of a test run when it was parking day, where we took away all the on-street parking and made it into parklets, if you will. And we gave that a try. And so this could be something similar to that. All right, what other?
We have the little park that's just behind Ladera and all that. There's an area, maybe that's somewhere where people can go and eat. We've got 3rd Street, and then we could also repurpose 1st Street. So, okay, thank you.
Thank you. And Carrie, go ahead. I know we're running towards the end of the webinar, but go ahead, Carrie. I know you have a comment, and you also represent the restaurants in downtown. Feel free to say hi and give us your thoughts. Oh, you need to unmute.
Edith, were you asking me? I didn't really have a comment. I was typing in comments into the chat, but I think, we'd be very much on board with having, the extended outdoor seating to allow greater flexibility for restaurants. I think it'd be really great to have the city kind of help clean up the sidewalks in advance of that, if there's any, resources available to do that kind of thing. And, whatever the Downtown Association can do, we'd be very supportive of anything that we can do in this effort.
Thank you. All right, any last comments? If there's no more comments, we will send out an email communication with the links and the presentation today. Matt, you were our keynote speaker today, and you were so patient with us as we also ended up sharing your stage with Kathleen and with John from ABC. So thank you, Matt. We have about 100 restaurants in Morgan Hill, and they're fabulous, they're amazing, and we are so grateful that you're helping us advocate for them. With that, I want to thank again Councilmember Larry Carr, Councilmember John McKay, Councilmember Yvonne Martinez Beltran, as well as our commissioners, Laura, for joining us today. The economic development team. This couldn't happen if you guys were not making sure that all this stuff happened. Thank you, Michelle. We will send out a link to this video and the PowerPoints, and enjoy your Tuesday. Join us at tomorrow's council meeting if you're available. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.